You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and just like any other time, we have another special guest. Today, we have the one and only Rhonda Parker Taylor. She is someone that you need to know about. She has some great insights from a publisher perspective. So if you are a self-publisher, someone who has books out there, you want to learn some marketing tips and maybe some learning curves that you can adjust to plan your future books, she's someone that is going to share with us about her experience with self-publishing, and we're going to talk about that versus traditional publishing. But before we do, she has a background as a multi-talented writer and entrepreneur. She has a great educational background as well that we'll kind of discover and explore later. But first and foremost, Rhonda Parker Taylor, thank you for your time today. Welcome to the show. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing? It's so good to see you again. I can't wait till we get into this conversation. You know, so many times we have our own dreams out there or our own thoughts, and we're working away and we don't think about, hey, what's the best path for me? Because, you know, there is no right or wrong. It's all about what you want to get out of the process. So I can't wait till we get into this, and I really appreciate you having me in today.
I appreciate you. People partner you with my friend's sports show, Sweep Unplugged. So big shout out to Rudy, the founder of Super Elite TV. Appreciate all the hard work that he's doing in the sports world. So I'm glad to have you switch gears and be on Refocused Network. When it comes to the opportunities you be able to obtain through your education, how has that or did that play a role in your decisions and how you wanted to explore your entrepreneurship?
You know, I think for me, it was a journey on knowing I can do it and getting rid of those negative talks that we have in our head and just going for it, because I found that for me to unearth my truth, I had to really address my strengths and my weaknesses. Sometimes we only do one or the other. And with me, I had always had the idea that I wasn't smart. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't, I was just a Midwestern girl that, should have probably gotten married, had kids, and not even thought about a career. And for me, then to go to college, get a master's, a doctorate, and, hey, that was something not unheard of, in the Midwest and a small town. So it was something that was a good journey for me. But I was raised by entrepreneurs, so I had to kind of get in there and not only just do the educational part of it, I had to learn about the process of owning your own business, which is important in the book publishing industry. So many of the times we go in there because we like writing, or we appreciate reading and we want to write. And we don't realize it's not just about the art. So many people want to say it's the art, it's the art. I agree, it's the art. That's why I like to go to book signings. I like to hear what everybody else has to say, not only about my books, but every other book in there. And you're hearing about all the series, and this person's doing history, and this person's doing that. And everybody that comes in has the same mission. And that mission is to find their next greatest escape. It doesn't matter if they're there for educational reasons. It doesn't matter if they're there for entertainment reasons. It doesn't matter what genre they're in. They want a good read, a good puzzle, a good, something that entertains them and makes them feel more out of their own life, because they've been brought this story. So, but what we forget is that it's a business. Yeah. Every shelf in that store, every Amazon order, if you have something out there, it's taking up shelf space if they let you in there. So it's no different than the grocery store. How are you going to get it in there? How are you going to get what you want? Or do you even care if it gets in a bookstore? These are questions you have to ask when you start talking about the traditional versus the self-publishing.
And you mentioned about entertaining the reader. When you look at the opportunities to see how not just your personal experience, but your education and life experience play a role in how you develop the storylines when you're writing. Mm-hmm. How much does just being able to be true to yourself, because it's one thing to be like, okay, I want to entertain the readers, I want everybody, I want to start this business, I want everyone to like what I do, but it's one thing to see it done from the outside. It's totally different when you're in the trenches and you're actually developing. You're getting the rejects. You're getting rejection is what I'm trying to say. You're getting the rejection. You're getting the feedback during the process. How do you stay motivated with the creative process, saying, okay, here's reality, but let's not give up too soon?
Exactly. First of all, have a process that works for you. For me, 1 page a day, and it's done in a year, no matter what the project is. 365 days then. So there you go. It's 2 double-spaced, 365 pages, and it's done. But that's draft 1.
Yeah. And
you have to realize in any business, that first draft is considered a prototype. Then you have to do the tolerance if you're in manufacturing, or if you're in, another kind of business, you have to look at the inventory and the cost and stuff. So you have to then look at the product that you've created and say, okay, what's best for this book? And the best thing that any writer can do is get feedback. Get a beta reader. A beta reader will get you in there. I started with my sister because she's good in the English language. But you know what? Even doing that was not good enough. I needed someone that liked the genre, specialized in the genre. You can go to conventions, you can go to all those things and get feedback before you try to do the publishing. Make it the best product you can give them. You do have to cut off sometimes and say, that's it, no more changes, because there's no perfect document. There is no perfect document. But you do have to get some kind of concrete feedback. And a beta reader, conferences, writing groups, those are great ways to at least to get something that makes it as close to perfect as possible. And then you can also, like, for instance, in Crossroads, my first novel, I went to a conference and I'd already had a beta reader read it, and it was one specifically for suspense. And the first thing they said is, great writing, great, except you need at the very first chapter something that hooks your reader, because a suspense person wants something immediately. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? How do I rewrite this? And then I was driving home from the airport, and I'm like, how am I doing this? I'm driving down the road, and I go down this really eerie road, and I got my muse. It was the railroad tracks that's shown on the front of my cover, which I think we're only audio right there, but it's shown on the front of the cover. And I said, that's where the dead body's going to be dropped. I hadn't dropped the body. Instead, I showed it in the trial and did everything else, but I hadn't dropped it. So there was a 911 call made, and boom, we had the hook. So sometimes you just have to be open to listening to what others say and let that creativity process work for you. So then once I did that, I'm like, okay, I'm ready. Let's go. What's the next step? What do you think the next step is?
I mean, the next step will be to apply what you learn, because it's one thing to be open to listening to someone's feedback, but it's another thing to actually keep that in the equation when you're taking your next step. But I'll let you answer that for our audience.
Exactly right. So I had to go back through all my notes then from the conference and say, okay, I got the hook. What do I do? And I got all those agents' names, all those, traditional publishers, addresses. What do they expect? What was then I had to say to myself, what was the book that they told me to get from the bookstore, and it's called The Writer's Guide, and it's bigger than the encyclopedia, and it has every agent's name in it. It has their phone number, what they'll accept. It has every publisher's name in it, what they'll accept if they're taking new authors, all of the things, what genres do they publish. And so I went and got that and started sending those query letters, because it says, send only one chapter. Don't send the whole book if they say don't. Send send them what they ask for. I did at first get overzealous, and they sent it back and said, this is trash. You didn't follow instructions. So you've got to realize here, again, it's a business. They don't have time for it.
Yeah.
I've heard people doing different gimmicks, like sending, blow up footballs or whatever they wanted to do to get the attention. And the gimmick isn't what they want. That traditional publisher wants you to follow their process. And that's kind of the biggest difference between the traditional publisher and the self-publisher. So I went through and I found a publisher. And I'm going through the process, and it was 2 years later, ready to go out, and they pulled the contract and they killed the book. I was heartbroken. So, if you're going the traditional route is like the NFL or the NBA. That's the 1%. Everybody else might go overseas, might be able to go to college, maybe, might at least have gotten a degree to do something else. Maybe they go into coaching, but that 1% is the ones that get the deal. But if they don't sell big the first time, then also it's going to, you're not going to get published again. So the traditional publisher is the wonderful world that you dream of. And maybe there are probably people out there that can get the deal sealed and everything else. And then I let it sit. I let the book sit because I had 5 of them, and I was disillusioned. Life hit, things happen, right? And so I was doing my own work, and so I went on. And it took my sister one day saying, when are you going to do something? I think she said that book is exactly how she said it, like it was a plague or something. And I said, well, I've been busy and this. She said, no, that's not it. And, big sisters don't know what they're talking about. She said, you're afraid to be vulnerable again. You have fear in your bones. Now tell me, that's the last thing anybody wants to hear, that they're fearful of success.
Yeah.
But if you're in the publishing industry, if you're in any industry that requires excellence and you have a product, you have to be willing to go the full distance to get it to market. And I had stopped. It's no different than someone else that scientifically created something and maybe they didn't get their study approved, or, you have to unearth what you're really wanting in that process. And so I had to dig deep, and guess what? Within 2 weeks, I found my route. After she said that, of course, I denied it. I mean, would you tell your big sister she knew what she was talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
They know, right? If you got siblings, they know you. But what I did is I realized that life was worth living even with the fear.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, the other 2 routes is the hybrid approach, which is still considered self-publishing, but you have a traditional publisher foundation because you have a mentor in the process. There's someone that's going to say, this is what the next step is. This is what the next step is. This is what the next step is. And it's not about the contract's going to be pulled at any point. Or you have the complete self-publishing where you do everything. You do the barcode, you do the getting the ISBN number. And I looked at both of those approaches, and I felt for me, the best approach was to have someone that was reputable, like the traditional publisher, that knew the industries, had the contacts, and that could guide me through the process. If I wanted to do it 100% the next time, then I could do that the next time because I would know more. So I went with Mindster Media. Some people might know the owner, J.J. Hibbert. He was in Shark Tank with Kevin Harrington. He got the big contract with Kevin Harrington, and they guided me through the process. And through that process, I not only learned the publishing aspect of it, I learned the marketing aspect of it, which is the business aspect of the industry. You have to know how to grow, and you have to know realistically what to expect. Anybody that's self-published knows that that's tough. Every sale counts. It's not something that you're going to be a millionaire at. Unless you get to that 1% again, then maybe you can start, buying a better car and doing these other things. But it is a business, and you have to really keep things tight until you get there. But the marketing and the branding is so important. Everybody knows who Stephen King is.
Yeah.
Everybody knows who Dean Koontz is. Everybody knows who Agatha Christie is. And the reason is they have a brand. People know when they pick up that book, the quality's going to be good and the story is going to be captivating. And they know King is known for his fantasy in it. They know Agatha Christie's known for the clues. Well, so I had to say, what am I going to be known for? What is Rhonda Parker Taylor going to be as an author? I love suspense, but I love people more. And so what my model is going to be and my brand is I'm going to stay doing my consulting and writing, and I'm going to continue to put out fiction novels that entertain on the crime aspect of things, but these twists and turns are going to have lessons in them. And the lessons are going to be something that I feel like we all need to address. So in Crossroads, it's life balance. Every single character has a loyalty to something that's false, other than themselves, their job, their friends, the legal system, whatever it might be. And so they're dedicating all their time and energy into that. And then what ends up happening is it allows an opening for crime because they're out of balance. Paris Pennington is the main character. She's a workaholic, and she gets called to jury duty. Well, what's that got to do with the people aspect of it, people might ask. The other part is then after you've read the book, if you agree that you're a life balance issue person, you could go get the workbook and let's deal with that. Let's get you rebalanced and enjoying your life.
Once again, listen on Refocused Radio and watching us on Refocused Network, talking to our special guest, Rhonda Parker Taylor. She has a website that you can go check out, is RhondaParkerTaylor.com, where you can see all the book reviews, all the events, press media, blog, and of course, Crossroads. You can pick that book up where you can buy books today. But I want to go back to when you talked about understanding hooking in the reader and getting that enlightenment, because to me it just sounds like and it feels like you were able to look through different lens, lens from feedback, lens from experts in the field, because I like what you said, you love suspense but you love people, and that's a aha moment, like looking at the bigger picture. Like, it's bigger than me. It's bigger than my ideas. Like, yes, it might seem great in my brain, but maybe there's more to it. And being able to take these other experiences from other people and looking through different lenses, it helps you polish your brand. because not only do you have a foundation of your brand, but now you can have a polished brand that people, like you said, to your point, all the famous names out there, of course it's easy for them to sell because people know their brand. They don't have to guess. They don't have to say, I'm going to read this and I'm probably not going to like it. And they do that before they even click on the link. They do that before they even finish the podcast interview. You know, it's all about what is your story? What is it that makes you different? Because that's what celebrities are doing, right? That's how they define who they are. Mm-hmm. So my next question will be, when you look at developing the hook, how much of it is it just being open to possibilities versus just being creative? Like how you balance it? Because I know there's like, okay, I have these principles I can feed off of, or this expertise that, gave me a lot of insight. How do you balance creativity versus maybe proven systems that worked?
Well, for me, in this particular case, I used my own personal experience. I've said it was a muse, right? So I'm driving down and this place is eerie and I'm like, oh, this is a perfect place for something, right? And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, and the crime that they're in the system are for in the entire book is the death of a 15-year-old girl. And I'm like, well, this would be a great spot. And then I had to go back to my own history and my own experiences. And, in my life, there was a time where a violent act was around me, and it was with a knife. And I could have been that victim. And I'm like, now I know what meaning can come from this. I can also explore those emotions from the perspective of the police had they found that 15-year-old girl dead. And then I was able to open myself up, not only for my own healing and perspective, because, I was a lucky one, but everyday people have to question, what happens when a loved one, experience a violent act or is taken from us? And what is that like for the people that have to deal with that daily? And so I was like, it was taking the feedback and saying, okay, I get that. And if I had to really deconstruct it, I agree with it, or could I go my own path? And I had to agree with it then. Hey, this makes it stronger because immediately the emotions and the attention is in the room, and that can be carried out throughout the rest of the book. So that feedback is important. You are correct that in some cases you might decide that the feedback is not relevant.
Yeah.
In the creative process, or doesn't improve the manuscript. And you have to look at that because, sometimes the other person's perspective isn't right and it doesn't fit your brand, your thoughts, your etc. But there are times, and another time that it fit was I must have been hungry when I wrote one section, because there was 3-4 pages about the buffet at Golden Corral on 38th Street in Indianapolis. So I'm like, why in the world, when someone read it, would you put 3 pages about the food? And that's the only thing I could come up with. I must have been musing over whatever the food was that I wanted that evening or whatever, because it was irrelevant to moving the story forward.
As I mentioned earlier, entrepreneurship is something that once you get into it, it's totally different. Like on the outside, it's like, oh man, I'm excited. Wow, got the balloons going, got the fireworks going. Like, wow, this is a great opportunity. And then once you're inside, there's going to be some seasons where it's like, whoa, I didn't sign up for this. This is not what I thought was going to, happen, or I didn't know it would be like this or whatever. But you've been able to personally deal with rejection. You talked about that earlier in the interview. Kind of touched on that as as a self-publishing author, understanding that even though you have some dark seasons where you're like, whoa, what did I sign up for? How did you deal with that pressure? Because it's cliche to say don't give up, but how did you say, okay, no matter what, I'm not going to quit this project?
Right. The first is you have to believe in yourself and your product, your writing, whatever. If you're an entrepreneur and it's something else, maybe you believe in educating kids and you have, a daycare. It doesn't matter, what it is. But entrepreneurship is an island by yourself most of the time. You have teams, but it's up to you to make sure that things run the way they need to. And my father told me very young that it's not about you. It's about the people that you're feeding and the people that is buying your product. And so once I realized to take me out of the picture, I enjoyed the process. I even enjoyed, the negative feedback sometimes, or the big goose egg that, you get a sales report and you've sold none that day or that week or whatever the period of time it is. And I had to say, you know what? But I'm still fulfilling the dream. And I sometimes will whine, depending on what the hurdle is, or I have other entrepreneurial authors that I can say, oh my goodness, it's hard to get into this store. Oh my goodness, it's hard to do this, because it is what worked for you, what happened to you. And we share ideas, but you have to obviously trust each other enough that those ideas, but hey, let's talk about, like a good example is this week I was realizing that the business manager of Indiana's Barnes and Nobles was following, and I hadn't realized that we had started following each other. But I've had several book signings in the Barnes and Nobles in Indiana, so I was like, oh, that's cool. But then I thought, you know what? I wonder if my friend Bob in Florida that has the flicker in the water realizes that this position is even out there, and so I sent a text say, hey, look to see who the business development manager for Florida is. And sure enough, they've been corresponding, and it's opened a few more doors. So when you share the knowledge, you also create a network of people that will go to bat for you.
That's the key. I mean, if I had a slam dunk top 10 highlight on a broadcast, I'll definitely cue that highlight real what you just said. Networking is everything. And like you mentioned, people will go back to you. They will hit home runs for you. And it's like you just wake up and you have notifications because someone behind the scenes, they were giving some great insight to what you're building. And that'll be my last question for you. Someone who has a ton of experience, not just with education, not just with the process of writing and getting published and going through all these different cycles of feedback. When you understand building your solid brand, building your name, Rhonda, for those out there who are watching and listening, and they are working on their books or they may be published books, what would you say is something that they can reflect on in their personal life and say, you know what, in order for me to get to this next level as a writer, as a publisher, self-publisher, what are some tools you believe that they can tap into in that self-development case? Because like you said, if you don't believe in it, who else will?
Right. Well, you have to believe in it and you have to create the brand. But you also have to believe in your readers. I realized I had done probably 4 or 5 book signings with Barnes and Noble, and they were successful. And then one day I did just a little bit different kind of I'm going to say it's kind of a sales pitch, but, a hello at the table. Different. And I had a giveaway, and the giveaway was sports oriented. It was tumblers. And I realized just in talking to the various people that have been at other book signings that I've been at, and talking to and having that, creating an environment that makes and celebrates the reader is really what you're supposed to be doing. It's not celebrating your success. And we make that mistake a lot as authors, that we want to celebrate because, hey, we don't feel that love all the time. So to be there and have somebody show up and want to buy your book or want to talk to you about it, it feels good. And it's like the pat on the back when you're there. But the pat on the back in any business isn't what you're supposed to be striving for. You are there to show your work and show the reader the value. Because if you're not providing a value to that reader, then why should they buy your book other than they may want to, help a local author? So you have to know the value of your book and the value of the reader. And even if they don't buy a book, or you had a bad experience because of some sort. This is the funniest story. I had a young lady, and she meant it with fun, but we might call her one of the trolls, in social media or something. But this was in real life. She came up and she was talking, and they had bought the book before, and we were going through all this, and they were cousins. And then she got up and went and, did her thing in Barnes and Noble and found her next great thrill. And then all this, as she was leaving, she kind of puts her hands like this, and she goes, "It sucks." And she meant it with fun, like a friend. But that could have, had I not known my readers, it could have devastated me. It could have made me, crawl in a hole and never want to do it again. Here again, this is where we have to realize not everything is for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Not everybody's going to like your work. And it's up to us to bridge it. I had in the same period another lady that was the most lovely lady that I'd ever met. But she would never have bought my book. She goes, "I only read happy things."
Yeah.
And so you can talk about the happy things, and you can talk about the books that bring joy, and still learn and engage with the person and become stronger as a writer, reader, person by learning everybody's perspective.
Yeah, I like that. Perspective is key. I say it all the time, but it's very factual, especially this year. Self-awareness has literally been mentioned by most of my guests. And when you think about the accountability that plays and how you are crafting your message, it's not just being able to articulate your vision. It's another thing to actually take action and execute on your vision, because people say, "Oh yeah, you're saying this, but man, your actions, they're talking to me loud in all caps. I already know what it's all about because I'm just looking. You don't have to say nothing, say less," is what they say. But when you look at the opportunities that is out there, I mean, you're taking this opportunity to be on platforms to share your story and give insight for those that is going to have the ability to enjoy the value that you're putting out into the world. What excites you the most, understanding that, hey, on chapter 1 in this journey in my business world, it was kind of whoa, but man, multiple chapters later, it's looking pretty good. I have a lot of things I've learned and a lot of things I'll be able to accomplish along the way.
And I want to share that knowledge. That's what excites me. What I've learned is what a lot of people run from because they get that first rejection. They get that, one bad review. They get, and then they crawl away from their dream rather than leaning into it. It's no different than Michael Jordan's getting rejected in high school from the team and having to dig in and get better at his craft. And look at the remarkable career he had and what an example that is.
Yeah.
Everybody has that in their life. Everybody has where they have to face critics, have to accept where they are, address their insecurities, get the growth in the pattern that they need, and practice their trade. And we talked in the podcast about the sports and emotional intelligence. Yeah. We talked a lot about the fact that vulnerability can do one of two things. It can make you run away and never do it again, or you can do the calisthenics and get stronger and faster. And it's the same thing with writing. Get down and do it. Maybe you're not doing push-ups. Maybe you need to be doing push-ups. But, it's the bottom line, transforming those insecurities and then that fear into a new layer that allows you to become the person you want to be. You may not be at the first round. It may be the second one. It may be the third one. I just told my brother-in-law because he loves the Patterson books and the ones that are really detailed. And I'm like, okay, mine's more people-oriented. And I said, but I told my sister, I said, you tell him he's gonna really start enjoying my books, because I learned from that. I learned from what he said. Also, I learned, okay, I can do that too without giving up my brand, without giving up the development of the characters that was so important to me. I can give him more details, and so, when you listen to those critics' voices, it doesn't mean you're selling out. It means you're improving your craft. That's no different than a coach telling you how to do a jump shot or the three-pointer or heaven help you if you need to be able to do, the free throws, because there is a way you're supposed to do that shot. And if you're not listening, then what ends up happening is you keep on making the same mistake.
Just like you said earlier about the publisher that said didn't follow directions, trash. I mean, those are the bruises that we get to overcome. And I like what you said about sometimes some people, I have to make a disclaimer, some people end up crawling away from their dreams versus leaning in to their dreams. And how would life have been totally different if you chose not to listen to that feedback when the person said you did follow directions, it's kind of trash. I look at that as signals, and sometimes life gives you signals because the bigger the blessings, the more the maintenance is required, and accountability and stewardship. And you can go ahead.
Yeah, sometimes you're not ready. So had it gone through the traditional publisher and they didn't kill the deal, I don't think Crossroads would have been as successful. Yeah. This is, I think that, one, I wasn't ready. I still had the shimmeries in the eyes about, this is what it's going to be like. And then two, I found someone to believe in my work as much as me that elevated my game. And that was Merrill Hemingway when she endorsed it. So, the younger generation may not know who she is, but that's a big deal for my generation. She's an Academy Award winning actress. Her grandfather's Ernest Hemingway. You need the network. You need the people that are going to believe. And had the first route gone through, maybe it would have been as successful. But guess what? It might not have been, because I might not have been ready. I needed that rejection for reality.
Boom. That's it. That was the secret sauce moment of the whole show. So if you didn't catch that, you need to rewind that and listen to what she just said. But once again, you've been listening to Refocused Radio, watching us on Refocused Network, talking to our guest today, Rhonda Parker Taylor. You go to her website, RhondaParkerTaylor.com. If those who want to be in touch with you and follow all your updates, and if someone just want to contact you, maybe for consulting or for other reasons, what's the best way someone can communicate with you?
If you go to RhondaParkerTaylor.com, there's a link there to send emails, and we'll be glad to, all my social media is RhondaParkerTaylor.com. I'll be glad to answer any questions, help somebody out the best I can, send them in the right direction the best I can.
Well, you can definitely pick up her book, Crossroads, and check out all the other resources that she has on her website, RhondaParkerTaylor.com. Like always, I want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.